welcome back to our next episode of the Hormone Café. Today, I want to talk about some simple swaps that we can make to slowly make ourselves healthier so we're eating real food instead of processed or refined food. It is really easy to buy things at the store and eat them. And a lot of times, if we're doing a good job looking at the back of the label and looking at the ingredients, we can pare down to things that are really healthy and really basic. It's what I call a primal diet. Everything that you put into your body, you want to know what it is that you're eating, especially if it's something that you're going to have every single day. Of course, if we want to have a treat every once in a while, we want to go out to eat, it might have some seed oils or things like that. But when we think about the things that we use every single day on a day-to-day basis, I want to go over a couple tips and swaps that we can make in order to keep ourselves as healthy as possible long term. So it's not about doing everything from scratch. If you're a person who loves cooking and baking, that is great. It's, of course, the best to make things at home. If you're like me and you're not super good at baking or cooking, then it's just about doing little tiny simple swaps, because a lot of processed foods or things in a package or things in a can, they do have seed oils in them. They have artificial sweeteners. They have real sugar. They have things like natural flavors, which are refined and created in a lab. And then they have some things like tocopherols or calcium carbonate, which are natural but are added back to fortify the food. So of course, in a perfect world, we would get all our nutrition just from real food. So I want to go over just a couple easy swaps and a little bit of recipes that might be helpful as you think about the things that you use in your everyday life and just how to swap it out for something healthier. So number one is nut milk. If you're a person who likes to put nut milk in either your smoothies or in your coffee, you can actually make your own and it's not hard. So you either take whatever nut you want, almond, cashews, you soak it overnight in water, and then you put in a little extra water, a pinch of salt, and you blend it. And then you strain it because it will have a little bit of that nutty texture if you don't strain it. But if you want to add in a little bit of extra flavor, you can put in a little tiny bit of vanilla extract or a date if you like that flavor. And that's it. Almond milk literally should have 3 ingredients: almond, water, sea salt. That's it. So if you're a person who loves nut milk, try making your own. It's actually way less complicated than you think. Let's look at a common almond milk and what the ingredients are if you were to buy it at the store and break that down, okay? So if you look at an almond milk, oftentimes it will say almond milk, which is filtered water, almonds. That's great. And then calcium carbonate is a common ingredient. That's actually that we're just adding in calcium to fortify the food, because almond milk, of course, doesn't have natural calcium in it. And of course, it's not bad to add in calcium. Like, it is a source of calcium. However, calcium that we get from food, so for example, from dairy or from fish, that kind of a thing, that has a chemical structure that's easier absorbed by our body, as opposed to calcium that we purify and make in a lab and then add back to fortify our foods. It's not going to be as well absorbed. So in a perfect world, instead of fortifying our foods with calcium, we would just get it from natural sources. And then sea salt is a common ingredient, potassium citrate, so that gives electrolytes, which is good. Sunflower lecithin is something that's called an emulsifier, and what an emulsifier does, it's an additive to make foods less chunky or clumpy or textured. So it tends to make foods really smooth, which is why we see it in a lot of nut milks. And then gellan gum is also similar. What it does is it makes the texture of the food more uniform. So when you see your things that are lecithins, like soy lecithin or sunflower lecithin or your gums, what they're doing is they're actually enhancing the texture of the food. And they have a little bit of pH balancing properties to make it more stable on the shelf. Because of course, when we think about processed food, it lasts way longer in the fridge than something that's really fresh. So when you see some of those are basically natural preservatives and ingredients that improve the texture. And then also, oftentimes you'll see, for example, on this specific brand of almond milk, it says natural flavors. And what natural flavors are is that They took something like a strawberry or a lemon or a mint leaf and then extracted really specific flavor chemicals from that, whether that was through heat or alcohol or pressure. And then they take that specific flavor extract and then they add that back into the food. So again, natural flavors, the hard part about it is that one label that says natural flavors could literally be up to 100 different things. So you don't exactly know what it is. However, it does come from fruit or vegetables or mint or something like that. So that is in and itself isn't bad. It's just not healthy. For example, if we're just extracting one specific chemical from the mint to give it a mint flavor, we're not actually getting the rest of the benefits, like the antioxidant benefits from the mint plant. So it's not bad. It's perfectly fine to have natural flavors as long as you don't have allergies to things like that. It's just that it doesn't have a lot of nutritional value. It's just a flavor enhancer. And then in this specific brand of almond milk, it has something called D-alpha tocopherol, which is vitamin E. And what vitamin E is an antioxidant. So it's often in foods that are fatty and oily because it helps them from going bad. So it's much more natural than other additives that can help foods from going bad. It's just kind of a sign that that food is designed to be more shelf stable for longer. So anything with tocopherol is natural vitamin E, and that's going to help foods that are fatty or oily from going bad. So when we look at our store-bought almond milk ingredients, they're okay, they're not horrible, but if you have time, we can just pare it down to literally the 3 ingredients that almond milk has. So that's a fun substitute if you're a person who likes nut milk. Another thing that I think is really helpful is to make your own treats, because not that we can never have sugar, it's just that when you buy something at the store or a bar that's sugary, it just tends to have a lot of extra sugar in it. And if you make it yourself, you can really control how much sugar is in it. For example, you can melt dark chocolate, and the higher percent cacao it is, the less added sugar it's going to have. And then when you're buying your dark chocolate, just make sure that the one ingredient is chocolate and the other ingredient is sugar. And that's it. So if you melt it, you can add anything that you want to it yourself. You can add sea salt, you can add coconut flakes, you can add nuts, you can add some peppermint extract if you want it to taste minty. You can put it on a piece of parchment paper in a pan, put it in your freezer, cut it up into little bars, and now whenever you have a craving for something sweet, you'll eat it, and it has no additives. It has cacao, a tiny bit of sugar, and then nuts and sea salt. So if you are a person who likes just having some chocolate around, if you have a craving and you want a little bite or a little treat, then just making it yourself can actually be really simple and easy. Another one of my favorite things is to do your own salad dressing. Unfortunately, when you look at the typical ingredient list, let's say, and even something as basic as balsamic vinegar, it almost always has soybean or canola oil, and those are considered seed oils. It's not that seed oils are bad in and of themselves. It's just that it's just so easy to find seed oils in our processed food, like our dressings and our bars. And we really need our omega-3 ratio to be higher than our omega-6 ratio, and seed oils are an omega-6. So if our omega-6 ratio is higher than our omega-3 ratio in our body, it really promotes a lot of inflammation. The problem is that when we think about omega-3s, they only come from literally fish. The top 10 omega-3 foods are all fish, whereas we think of omega-6s, all the seed oils are an omega-6. So we want to get omega-6s from natural sources like chia seeds and not from processed foods so that they don't build up inflammation in our body. So going back to our typical ingredient list of a store-bought balsamic vinegar, it's going to have water, soybean or canola oil, vinegar. Oftentimes it has a lot of added sugar, or it'll say something like brown rice syrup, which is just sugar. And then it'll say natural flavors, which we talked about are lab-derived flavor compounds. And then it often has gums, like for example, xanthan gum to make the consistency more pure. And then it often also has preservatives. So one example of a preservative is called calcium disodium EDTA. And we really do not want to have unnatural preservatives in our body, because just like they keep food from oxidizing and things like that. They can actually do that to the cells in our body, so they can prevent the natural processes of our cells from functioning. So when we think about our salad dressing, just keep it really, really easy. Instead of having a store-bought salad dressing, literally you just put olive oil, and then you can either do balsamic vinegar, apple cider vinegar, lemon juice. That's it. That's the basic. Whatever else you have on hand as far as spices, salts, herbs, add that in if you want to. So if you want to do a little squirt of Dijon mustard or regular mustard, pour a little bit of salt or Himalayan salt, put some rosemary or basil, a squeeze of lemon juice or lime. Making your own salad dressing is such a game changer, and it actually lasts in the fridge for up to 2 weeks as long as you keep it in an airtight container. So if it doesn't have to be complicated, anything you have in your house, just combine some olive oil with some lemon juice, vinegar, throw some salt and herbs in there, and it makes an amazing salad dressing. The other fun option that I like is to make your own electrolyte gummies, because a lot of times our store-bought electrolyte packets, they're almost always going to have an artificial sweetener. It's really, really hard to find electrolytes that don't have stevia or monk fruit or sucralose or aspartame or something like that, but you can literally make your own. So if you take coconut water and then you put in a little pinch of mineral salt and lemon juice and then add gelatin, you can literally buy just plain old gelatin at the store, put it into the bottom of a pan, put it in the fridge, and then you can cut it into squares, and then you have your own electrolyte gummies. So if you're feeling like you're drinking so much water and you really don't want to drink more water, but you need more electrolytes, or you want just something else in addition to drinking electrolyte water, or you're having a crash in the afternoon, kind of a fun little snack can be to do your own electrolyte gummies. My favorite just DIY electrolyte water is just to do 8 to 12 ounces of water, and then you just need 1/4 of a teaspoon of Himalayan or sea salt, and then it's helpful to squeeze half of a lemon or half of a lime in it. So electrolyte water, if you have salt around, water, lemon or lime, or you could muddle a cucumber or muddle a strawberry if you want it to have a fruity flavor. It's just an amazing way to get your own natural electrolytes. And putting fruit or citrus in there is a fantastic way to add your own vitamin C, for example. My other absolute favorite hack is to upgrade your coffee. I really get nervous about coffee creamers because they almost always have some kind of preservatives and emulsifiers, because like we talked about, coffee creamer that you buy at the store needs to have a homogeneous texture and be shelf stable for a really long time. So of course it needs to have preservatives and emulsifiers in it. But my favorite thing to do is just in my own coffee, I'll pour a dollop of heavy whipping cream, and then I usually throw in a scoop of collagen powder or collagen peptides, because they don't have a taste. You can't taste it at all, and it can give you an extra 20 grams of protein. And then if you want it to have a flavor, put in a couple drops of vanilla extract, because it will make this amazing vanilla creamer, or put in a couple drops of peppermint extract, or you can put cinnamon or nutmeg on there. Make your own flavor. If you just do a splash of heavy cream or heavy whipping cream and then a little dusting of cinnamon or vanilla, it literally has no sugar. It has a great amount of fat. It has a lot of protein. And you can throw in things like a scoop of creatine powder if you need a little bit more energy, a scoop of collagen if you need more protein. So making your own coffee creamer is such a game changer for putting nutrients into something that you're already drinking. And if you're dairy-free or dairy is inflammatory for you, you can make your own nut creamer instead, like we talked about above. You just literally blend up nuts and water, and then you can throw that into your coffee instead with a little bit of flavoring, like a vanilla extract or a peppermint extract. So that's one of my favorites. When we talk about treats, so for example, I love having ice cream. It's like one of my absolute favorite treats. And it's not that you never want to have ice cream. You just want to save it for special occasions. So a couple nights a week, you want to have a treat. You just don't want to incorporate it into your life every single day. However, there's some hacks that you can do where, similar to the chocolate bars, if we're craving something sweet. So my favorite 3-ingredient ice cream is to do frozen bananas. So if you buy bananas unpeel them and then put a bunch of them in the fridge. And if you blend frozen bananas with either a little bit of nut milk or heavy whipping cream, you can throw some protein powder in there because one banana is going to be about 10 grams of sugar. So if you want to cancel out the sugar, you can add in the equivalent amount of like an unflavored protein powder, and then you can put whatever other flavor you want. So you could do cacao if you want it to taste chocolatey. You can throw peanut butter in if you want it to be like a peanut butter banana. You can throw some berries in if you want it to be like a strawberry or blueberry banana, get a little bit of antioxidant. But literally, if you blend either nut milk or heavy whipping cream and bananas and then whatever flavor, it makes this texture that looks just and tastes just like ice cream. It's completely delicious and it has no added sugar. It's just the natural sugar from fruit. So that's also another amazing hack where you can still keep your 1-to-1 protein to carbohydrate ratios and fulfill some of those like sugar or sweet cravings, especially if you want something cold or you want something that's like the texture of ice cream. So one of my absolute favorite hacks, because I personally love ice cream. Other of my favorite kind of swaps that I really like are pasta can be really high in carbohydrates. So for example, if you look at the back, one serving of pasta can be as high as like 40 grams of carbohydrates. And again, we do need carbohydrates. They're good for us. The higher fiber content that we can get from our carbohydrates, the better. But sometimes when we're eating pasta or we're wanting to have those carbohydrates, it's hard to get enough protein to cover those carbs. So for example, if we're having one serving of pasta and it's almost 40 grams of carbs, it's really hard to eat 40 grams of protein in one sitting with that pasta. So not that you can't eat pasta, just you want to diversify it a little bit and mix it up. So for example, do some high quality protein pasta some nights and then occasionally swap it out with things like zucchini noodles. So spiraled zucchini or spaghetti squash, try that as a pasta, or do lentil or chickpea pasta. So sometimes it's helpful to just rotate through if you're a person. So I just love pasta because it's such an easy thing to cook and it's such a go-to and it's really filling. But rotating between a couple different types of pasta can actually give you a lot of nutrient diversity. So for example, chickpeas and lentils, they do have a lot of fiber in them and they have a little bit of protein. And then of course, if we're doing zucchini or spaghetti squash, it tastes like pasta, especially if you put a lot of good sauce on it. And it doesn't have such a high, of course, carbohydrate load. So not that you can't have pasta, but it might be helpful to just rotate your pasta through the day or through the week or the month and swap out some occasional other types of noodles. And then also my absolute favorite thing to do is make your own homemade protein smoothies. A lot of people will buy store-bought protein smoothies and it's impossible to find an all-natural protein smoothie at the store because number one, it's almost always going to have an artificial sweetener because if you're just going to drink a bunch of protein, it's not going to taste good, right? Think about our protein sources. Imagine having chicken or beans or lentils ground up into a drink. It's not going to taste good, right? And so in order to make a protein smoothie taste good, they have to put in some kind of sugar, right? Usually it's going to be an artificial sweetener. The other thing is they are going to have to put additives into it in order to keep it fresh and to have preservatives. And then also they're going to have to put some kind of emulsifier, right? Like our sunflower lecithin or xanthan gum or guar gum in order to keep the texture smooth. So I really, really recommend that you make your own protein smoothies. They're so amazing, either as an alternative to breakfast or as an afternoon snack, or even a snack right before you go to bed. So just put some frozen berries or any fruit that you have and then add in protein powder. Of course, I always recommend doing an unflavored protein powder. Okay, don't get a flavored protein powder. A flavored protein powder is guaranteed to have an artificial sweetener. Okay, so do berries, protein powder, and then you can throw in nut milk or coconut water or literally just regular old water. And then it is helpful to put some vegetables in there, right? If you have any spinach or kale or frozen spinach or frozen kale, as long as you're making a smoothie, you might as well throw in some vegetables. It's also helpful to put some fiber in there. So throw in some flax seeds or some chia seeds. A protein smoothie is just a great way to blend up a bunch of nutrients and then have an easy thing to drink. Of course, there are some negative side effects to blending things. For example, if you're going to blend up spinach and kale, it's not going to be as high fiber content as if you were to just eat spinach or kale because you're just blending out the fiber now. However, you are going to get the nutrients. So as long as you're making a smoothie, definitely throw in some vegetables because you can mask the taste a little bit with sugar. Of course, just pay attention to the carbohydrates that you're putting in, right? So even if you're putting in berries, bananas, things like that, if you're putting in some kind of fruit, just make sure you put the equivalent amount of protein. If you don't want to do protein powder, you can also blend in some nuts or some nut butters. That can be a great way to offset some of the sugar that we're getting from the fruit with an equivalent amount of protein. I'm a huge fan of prepping and making things ahead of time. It's really, really hard to eat healthy if you're not prepping. But if you're already making a smoothie, make a huge batch of it. Make like 7 smoothies and then put them in the freezer. And then if you ever need a little pick-me-up, you're having a crash, you want to grab it on the way because you don't have time to make breakfast, then you have your high-protein snacks that you can use throughout the week. So homemade protein smoothies, one of my favorite things. Another one of my favorite things to do is do homemade breakfast bites or egg bites because you can use either a lot of leftovers that you have or you can use any leftover vegetables that you have. So if we think of our Starbucks egg bites, right, you can literally make them from home. So you either want to take egg whites or eggs, and then you can literally throw in anything that you have. So we do this a lot at home. For example, we'll put, if we have extra bacon or extra sausage or asparagus or spinach or tomatoes, or if you want to put some cheese in or cottage cheese, and then you pour that mixture into muffin tins, you bake them in the oven. You can either do a high temperature for like 20-25 minutes, or if you want more of a fluffy texture, do a low temperature, like 225 degrees for a longer period of time, like an hour. And then you can put them in your fridge and you have these go-to amazing, very, very healthy breakfast bites and egg bites that you can grab if you don't have time to make breakfast in the morning and we're still trying to get in our 20 grams of protein. And you can just use whatever you have in your fridge at the time. You don't have to have fancy ingredients. It's a great way to use up leftovers and be healthy at the same time. My last kind of favorite hack is to do homemade sparkling water. And if you can find a really pure sparkling water, it's not that sparkling water is bad for you. It's just that even the pure sparkling water, they are going to have some kind of natural flavors. So it is really healthy to do it yourself. So you can literally buy a soda stream or have a little water carbonator, and then you can have your own. If you're a person who just loves having that bubbly flavor, like get your own carbonated water maker, and then you can make your own carbonated water, pour it into a glass, and then put any flavoring that you want. So like a squeeze of lemon or lime, muddled berries, cucumber or mint, throw a little bit of salt in there. You can get that great kind of texture and flavor of the carbonated water, and then put in your own flavoring, and it tastes so fresh and so amazing. So one of my absolute favorite hacks. I think overall the most important thing is to start small, right? As with all swaps, it's going to be impossible to just overhaul our life, and we don't need to change up our routines that much, right? Just make sure you always have fresh things like fresh herbs and fresh fruit and fresh vegetables to throw into something that you're already cooking. It's just a great way to get vitamins and minerals. So if you want to do all of it at once, of course, you're going to burn out. So just do 1 or 2 swaps. So just pick 1 or 2 swaps that you want to do this week. Like, okay, Dr. P, I'm going to start changing up my creamer in my coffee, or I'm going to make my own electrolyte water, something like that. Start with what you consume daily, right? So if you're a coffee person, try to change up your coffee creamer. If you're a snack person, try to make your own snacks. If you're an electrolyte person, just try to do your own electrolyte water or your own electrolyte gummies. Because the whole goal is that we want to reduce any toxins, right? We want to reduce any microplastics that we're getting from food, and we want to reduce any preservatives, of course. And then we also want to make sure that we're getting enough protein to always stabilize our blood sugar throughout the day, to support our cortisol production and our hormone production. And then we want to have as many nutrient-dense things as possible. And that is essential for our egg quality and our hormone production to get a big variety of nutrition sources. So pick one thing from this episode, 1 or 2 things, try it out this week, and then tag me on Instagram and share it. I would love to hear what you're doing. No matter what, I am super excited about your health journey, and I wish you the best in all things. If you are wondering, okay, this seems really overwhelming, I need someone to break it down for me, please don't hesitate to give us a call. We do a lot of nutrition work here at Vera Health and Fertility, and we also have a dietitian who really helps break down things into practical, manageable things for your life. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Hormone Café, and we can't wait for you to join us on our next episode.